That is Kamala Harris with Too Raw, Too Real backstage in San Francisco ahead of her speech to emerge, her first major address of the Trump administration. And that is not something you're going to see Donald Trump doing anytime soon. Very different Americas.
Very cool.
We'll talk about that more with our panel. Joining us on the left this week is Areva Martin, is many things: civil rights attorney, best-selling author, TV host, autism advocate. She hosts The Special Report with Areva Martin, which you can find on her YouTube page. Those are some of the guests she's talked to. Jennifer Horn is a longtime conservative radio host. She is the host of The Morning Answer on AM 870 and AM 590 in Southern California, where you can hear me every Thursday at 8:30 a.m. with her. Jennifer, welcome to The Issue Is for the very first time.
I know. I'm so happy to be here with you. Thanks for inviting me in.
Yeah, and Areva has been with us literally since week.
I'm glad to have you here, Jennifer.
Good. I got my training wheels with me.
I can welcome you too.
Literally since week one, and this week is our anniversary. So we've got some video of you from our first show, which was this week, 7 years ago. This week. So that's when The Issue Is first started. So happy anniversary to you, Areva.
Thank you. And it keeps getting better. You've won all kinds of awards, and you've gone statewide, I don't know, nationwide, worldwide. Congratulations.
He's fancy.
Well
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really well done.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. All right, let's start the conversation by talking about your friend of many, many years, Kamala Harris, who reemerged at Emerge, this big event in San Francisco this week, her first policy address since President Trump took over. And she really went after President Trump pretty hard. Here's some of that.
What we are in fact witnessing is a high velocity event where a vessel is being used for the swift implementation of an agenda that has been decades in the making.
Sort of talking about this long-term strategy. Interesting what she said, interesting what she didn't say. She didn't talk about California issues really at all, people trying to determine whether she's running for governor or running for president, but the national issues she seemed very passionate about. Yeah,
let's talk about those dance moves a little later, but kudos to my friends for whipping that fan and boots on the ground dance. But yes, some parts of that speech I had seen because she was at Leading Women Defined down in Dana Point about a month ago, and I was at that conference, and I had the honor of being at the luncheon when she kind of gave us a preview of that speech. So we know what she's been thinking. We know that these issues are very troubling to her. Some of these issues around immigration, issues around DEI. Look, Kamala Harris, at the heart of who she is a lawyer, is a former prosecutor. So to see the rule of law being just trampled over by the Trump administration and by the MAGA right is very personal to her.
Mm-hmm. Your takeaway?
Yeah, I thought it was a much darker speech for her. For the first time out, it was a little bit more, I mean, I know we had the fun with the elephants and people love to talk about that and make jokes, but I definitely thought it was a darker tone for Kamala Harris. And so it kind of got you thinking, and we talked about it on the radio show, what are her plans? What is she looking to do? Clearly, she's looking to be back in the spotlight.
She wants to run for something. That we know.
Right. So is she going to run for governor or is she going to run for president? And for me, she's in a tough situation. As someone on the right, when you look at her as a presidential candidate, she's going to have to do a lot of changing from where she was. And there was a poll, I don't know if you both saw it, but CNN had a poll out this week that said, if you chose today, who could run the country better? Trump was at 45% and Kamala was at 43%. So it's tight, but she's still not regaining anybody's support after that big loss. So I think she'd have a lot of work to do to become president, to have a viable run, although she's got that name recognition. But boy, running in California, you have a lot to explain if you're a Democrat, because California is failing. And I think it would be an easier track for her to become California governor with the Democrat machine, but she's going to have to be ready to address the problems that California is facing. They're real.
What do you know her. What do you think she wants?
I just want to address something Jennifer said about that poll. I hadn't seen it, so thank you for bringing it up. But I think it's very telling that she's at 43% when she's been so quiet. I think if that poll were taken after she'd been out talking publicly, addressing crowds in the way that we saw at that speech, I think there'd be a very different number with respect to that poll. But one thing about the governor of California, obviously she can't go wrong, governor or president. The governor of California is going to be that key Democratic Democratic elected official who's going to take on the Trump administration. So I think a lot of people want to see her do that because they know she would be best at prosecuting the case against Donald Trump. But there are also folks who believe that she only had 107 days in that presidential campaign. She raised, $1.5 billion. She got 74 million votes. She did exceptionally well in 107 days. So a lot of people feel like there's still work that can be done. And if she had the full length of a real presidential campaign, that she could have beat him then and definitely could be the next president.
Why do you think her poll numbers were better towards the beginning and actually dropped off in the last month? It seemed like if it would have been shorter, she would have done better.
Well, I think we can't read too much into, again, 107 days. We don't have a precedent for that. We don't have, data that we can look at, history that we can look at for someone who got thrusted into the position in the way that she did. So everything about that campaign was so unusual. It was, issues of first impression. So I think we have to look at how she is doing now. Again, that poll that you cited, Jennifer, I think is very encouraging. And I'm sure her team is looking at that saying a lot of people still want me to be the president of the United States.
She is going to have to do some explaining, though, because I do agree that 107 days, she was at a deficit already launching her campaign. Totally will give her that. But I think she's part of the problem. She was part of the administration. She owns a lot of the things that people didn't like about the Biden administration. And I'd also say she's going to have to explain, well, she was part of the cover-up of Biden's mental state. She was right there with him. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people lost trust with the Democrat Party. They're going to have to rebuild and present a new vision for America instead of trying to clutch on just the anti-Trump message. I think we're going to need to see a vision, and we're going to need to see some acknowledgement that the American people were lied to for a long time.
And there's going to be a lot more about that in the coming weeks as new books come out on that very topic.
Well, no doubt anyone running for president on the Democratic ticket in 2028 is going to have, I think, a competitive advantage, the likes of which we have not seen, because the first 100 days of this Trump administration has been a complete disaster. Every day, there are groups and groups of voters who voted for Trump, who have voters' remorse, who thought this presidency was going to be focused on lowering prices, making everyday life for middle-class Americans better. But yet people go to the grocery stores, they go to furniture stores, they go to buy a bed. Wherever they go, they see higher prices. And you don't see a president focused on lowering prices. You see a president focused on retribution and revenge, going after Harvard University, going after universities, going after government workers. So I think Democrats have a tremendous amount to work with, and the table's being set by Donald Trump.
Would you call it a disaster?
I would, with all due respect, I would call it an amazing success, actually.
Yeah.
These first 100 days of Trump, I think, are exactly what he promised his supporters. It's exactly what we were hoping to see. I mean, look at what we've already gotten. We've gotten $5 trillion investment into the country. We've gotten the promise of 440,000 jobs that are coming back into the country. The border is secure for the first time in 4 years, and he did that in about 3 seconds. You've got 26 hostages that have been sent home. You have a real transparency and common sense nature that's back. And I think people are actually appreciating that. We actually can see a functional White House, and it may be fast moving and it may be operating at the speed of Trump, which was a lot of people say. Some people say it's chaotic, but I say he's been actually delivering. My call now is for Congress to actually codify some of these policies that he's put into place so that we can actually really start to feel the effects.
I think, Alec, what you just said, Jennifer, is just epitomizes what's happening in this country. You live in one world. I live in a completely different world.
Look, my mom is liberal, so we do these conversations all the time.
I do not see all of the success you're talking about. I see the trampling of people's rights. I see people being pulled off the street. I see poor students being terrorized. I see people being fired who have been told on Monday that their job performance is outstanding, and on Tuesday being told they're being laid off because of being fired. I see a man in the name of Elon Musk who was given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted to do in the government, and lies about what he has done, and lies from this administration. Promises made, promises broken. One of the biggest ones is Project 2025. Trump disavowed Project 2025, tried to distance himself from it. And now all of a substantial number of people who worked on Project 2025 work in the Trump administration. And so many of the policies that we knew would be harmful to this country that were laid out in that policy agenda are now being implemented by this administration. So this administration has lied, distracted, and distorted the truth. And people are feeling it. And a lot of those voters, Jennifer, are saying they have voters' remorse. If they had to do it all over again, they would not.
Yeah, I think we have to clear up this Project 2025 thing, because I've heard so much about it and people try to vilify. There's so much fear mongering going on the left. People are constantly fear mongering and they literally are scaring people. And so much so that I think people are losing jobs. They're losing a lot because of all the fear mongering that's going on the left and sometimes in the mainstream news media. Not here, of course, Alex. But I will say with Project 2025, that was simply policy papers put together by the Heritage Foundation. It was never President Trump's. It was never anything that he wrote. Certainly, those are some of the top conservative thinkers out there, and he's brought some of those people into his administration. But the big bag documents, I mean, I actually read through some of it because I want to be fair, and I want to know what they were vilifying in this. And there was really not a lot out of the scope of what President Trump has run on. And for Elon Musk, by the way, I think he's been vilified. He's been attacked personally, financially, and he's almost cut $1 trillion of waste. I don't know how we stand against cutting waste, fraud, and corruption from a bloated
Republican
government.
Congressmen acknowledge that these so-called cuts are in many ways distortions of the truth. He's taking credit for cuts that were made by the Joe Biden administration. He doesn't have the receipts for these so-called cuts. Many of them have not resulted in these savings, but they've resulted in chaos, and they've resulted in the complete devastation of lives of people who worked in the federal government for years. But let me go back to, again, I just want to say real quickly, I have to address autism. Near and dear to my heart.
And thank you for your work with that, by the way.
Thank you, Jennifer. You and I are having too much fun together.
They're going to be buddies.
This is political discourse.
We bring people
this is how it has to happen.
That's what this show is, right? It's about, you acknowledge that everybody lives in echo chambers.
And
it's important to bring people around the table, right?
That's right.
And find areas of agreement. But now tell us your areas of disagreement.
Kennedy, the Health and Human Services Secretary appointed by Donald Trump, has been a complete disaster. His comments about autism, his comments about what people with autism can't do, so offensive, based on junk science, not driven by data or science. And the way they are dismantling the Health and Human Services Department, the complete gutting of our Department of Education, has put the lives of children with autism, their families, adults with autism at risk. All the work that we've done in this community for decades to make autism, people with autism feel accepted and to get them the resources and services they need. We feel in this community with one horrific speech, this man who calls himself our Health and Human Services Secretary has just undermined that work. And it's scary talking about a registry where people with autism have to sign and have all their personal data revealed to the government, undermining the credibility of scientists like those at UCLA and UC Santa Barbara and San Diego. Just all of that work being in jeopardy because this non-science guy who believes in quack sciences.
I want to just to chime in on RFK Jr. And I hear your passion on this issue. And I think sadly, so many of us are distrusting the government. We're distrusting the so-called science. I mean, just you have to look and see what happened to us during COVID. We were locked away. We were told to stand 6 feet away. People died in nursing homes and hospitals all by themselves. People were really isolated. And that was because the government used science to lie to us. And so there is a distrust. And I do want to see RFK go in there and say, you know what, Big Pharma, maybe we have some questions for you. You know what, Big Agriculture, maybe we've got some questions for you. Why are you all in bed together? Why are you all in ownership with one another? There are questions to be asked. It's okay to do that. We can have these conversations and still celebrate our freedom, especially when it comes to our health.
Real quickly, I appreciate your acknowledgement that there are people with different perspectives and we bring people to the table here. In terms of Trump, though, do you think the tariffs are a potential real problem for him?
So I acknowledge,
politically.
Yes, I acknowledge that I am one of 4 people on the planet that have no problems with the Trump tariffs. And I'll tell you why. It's been one of my hot button issues for a long time. We are dependent on China. We are dependent on China not just for our clothes and for the stuff we want to buy on Temu or whatever it is, or Amazon. We're not just dependent on that. We're dependent on China for our chips, for a lot of our technology, and more importantly, our pharmaceuticals. And what I don't want to see happen, because we already saw it with the the COVID virus is that China got involved and made people sick, and they didn't do anything to help the situation. They made it worse. The dependence on China is real. It's the biggest threat that we have facing our country. And I'm in for a few months of pain to make sure that we bring jobs back to America, because that is good for us. And we're already seeing it. Mercedes announced investments. We're going to bring jobs back to this country so we can cut that dependence. It is a national security threat.
Okay, so let's go back quickly to the governor's race. On the Republican side, so far we have Steve Hilton and we have Chad Bianco both running. You talk to Republicans every day. I know this weekend you have a big event with both of these guys.
That's right.
Who is sort of the Republican choice, if there is one?
I am just so happy, Alex, that there is two strong Republicans in this race. I have to tell you, it's very frustrating, as you can imagine, being a female Republican in California, and you get a lot. I don't know if you noticed, you get a little hate, but you don't have a lot of great representation. You don't have people out there who are doing strong Republican messaging. And this time around, we actually have two great candidates in the race. I look at both of these guys. You and I were at Steve Hilton's launch event. It was a flawless launch. He's come out with some real solutions to California's problems. Sheriff Chad Bianco talks about helping the middle class by taking away the state income tax. These are all things that will help immediately, where all I've heard from a lot of the Democrat candidates are about the problems of California. But the irony is that in 20 years of California Democrats ruling California, they haven't fixed anything. So we need to see some solutions from them. I would vote for a Democrat for governor if I felt like there was someone who wasn't going to run us into the ground. But
Rick Caruso?
Rick Caruso is a moderate guy. Obviously, if he's up against my friends, Chad Bianco or Steve Hilton, I'm going to vote for one of them. But I think that he might bring some Republicans in if he gets into the governor's race.
Which one is it, Bianco or Hilton?
I'm not ready to make an endorsement yet, but I am supportive of both of them.
You know, Jennifer, you just said that Kamala's speech was dark. Steve Hilton started his campaign talking about California being the sick man of the country.
It is.
No. You can't have it both ways. Democrats aren't painting the state as, you know, this just hellfire and brimstone place. That's what Steve Hilton has done in terms of his campaign. He's a playbook right out of Donald Trump, like make everything look so dark and so dismal, and then say, I'm the only person that can fix it. You got a former Fox News host, and then you have this sheriff who has one of the worst records probably ever in the state in terms of police brutality. So when the research comes out on this sheriff, I think he has like a 0% chance of being the governor of the state. And what the people of California really want, as I said earlier, is someone who's going to take on the Trump administration. They don't want a Trump clone. And both of these candidates on the Republican side are running as Trump clones.
And
I do not think they have a snowball's chance in hell of ever becoming the governor of the state. But
there are some polls, though, that show that some people are getting sick of just going after Trump and they want more solutions for the state. But to your point, so Kamala Harris, which do you want her to run for?
I want her to run for that race which she believes where she can be the most effective. And I think she could be an effective governor, but I also think she could be an incredible president of these United States.
Where do you think her heart is?
I think her heart is with the people. You know, I'm a lawyer, so.
Her heart's running for president, right?
Her heart is with the people. Her heart is with service. The first thing she did when she landed in California was to go visit fire victims.
Okay. Well, clearly there's a lot to talk about here. Up next, we're going to talk about the current governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and what he was up to this week with regards to Elon Musk. Stay with us.
We're DOGE, but better.
That's Governor Newsom saying that California's use of artificial intelligence is making government more efficient by helping stop fires faster, simplify your taxes, and ease your commute. He admits Elon Musk's chainsaw-wielding DOGE has gotten more attention, though. Are there any lessons to be learned from Elon Musk's theatrics? I mean, in terms of communicating?
The most difficult thing is when you're tearing something down, it's easy to get attention. Easiest thing in the world is to tear something down. I can do all that in 10 days. I don't even need 100 days to tear everything down.
But to that question of how do you get along, you and Elon Musk used to get along pretty well back in the day. Yeah. How are you getting along now? Have you talked about any of these concepts with him recently?
This is why I need my chainsaw. No, I haven't talked to him lately. Unsurprising, but a lot of folks that knew him for decades haven't talked to him lately. I've talked to a lot of those folks, comparing notes, and hopefully he comes back around.
Back with our panel right now, Areva Martin and Jennifer Horn. Jennifer, your thoughts on the Governor Newsom, Elon Musk complicated relationship and what it means for us
I
here
love
in California.
frenemies. You know, frenemies are always fun to watch, but I don't know. I have to tell you, as a Californian, knowing that Gavin Newsom is running for president, every once in a while we start to get lucky because he has to do something kind of sane since he wants to present himself as a moderate. And so, look, I'm not upset with the governor coming out and saying he wants to use AI to fix things. My question is, why didn't you do it 5 years ago?
Well, he says that he did. He says that the Office of Digital Innovation started in 2019.
Have we seen the results, though? I mean, think about it. Under Gavin Newsom, he's got 20% more bureaucrats in California. He's got 41% higher government salaries in California. He's got an insolvent Medicaid system because he's overpromised to illegal immigrants in the state. He's got $30 billion in waste and fraud and unemployment. So if he was really serious about DOGE, and if he was really serious about making those cuts, we wouldn't be sinking and losing money in this homeless industrial complex. We wouldn't be seeing all of these fraudulent things, and maybe we'd actually have a balanced budget.
Yeah, I am on the fence about Governor Newsom as he tries to become the next president of the United States. Obviously, I've not picked a candidate in that race. You know who I would pick if she's in the race. But
yes.
My biggest issue with Newsom is to be in elected office, you got to have a base. And I'm puzzled by who is his base. In this effort to move to the right, to move to the center, who is going to be there to say Gavin Newsom is my guy, is my candidate? And that's what has Democrats so perplexed by so many of the things that he's done. The interviews that he's done with those far right, podcasters, and the way that he's trying to cast himself now as this centrist, I don't know if centrist or very moderate Democrat. It creates a problem for you because we don't know who he is. We don't know which Gavin Newsom is going to show up on which day. And that could be a real problem when you're trying to run for any elected office. So kudos on the artificial intelligence. I totally disagree with everything Jennifer said about the state of California. Everyone talks about how horrible California is and the scapegoating of immigrants. Let's stop that. Immigrants are such an integral part of our entire country. We couldn't do anything. A day without immigrants would be the sinking of this country. So many of us, so many people in this country are immigrants. So that I just find so offensive on the right. And I just wish they would acknowledge how important immigrants are to the vitality and economic,
we're not anti-immigrant. We're pro-legal
country.
Immigrant as the Republicans. We are pro-legal immigrant. And by the way, the priority on the Trump administration and with all of the immigration issues is about getting the criminal illegal immigrants out because they are posing a big problem to the safety of American citizens and to the immigrant community.
That's fear-mongering that immigrants are somehow more responsible for crime than American citizens are. We already know that there's evidence and data out there that makes that claim
but the concept of
false.
taking immigrants who have committed crimes and had due process and been convicted out of the country, are you for that? Right?
I am in favor of that, but let's go back to that due process because that's getting trampled over. That's being forgotten when you take people off and say, because of the tattoos on your hand, I've unilaterally determined that you are a criminal without a due process hearing. So, of course, I would hope that
I don't have an MS-13 tattoo, though.
And nor does this construction worker who's been wrongfully deported.
So on the Governor Newsom front, it's interesting some of the moves this week. Just this week, the acting director of ICE is actually giving Governor Newsom credit for working with the department to try to remove people who are here illegally and have been convicted of crimes. He also came out against some of what the Democratic Party is doing in terms of child sex trafficking. There was this big bill this week, a story that got a lot of attention out of Sacramento. We want to show you some video of Maggie Krell. She's on the right here. She's a Democratic Assembly member. She's an expert on child sex trafficking, and she wanted to make it an automatic felony to traffic a 16 or 17-year-old. Progressives pushed back. She was actually removed from her own bill. The bill itself paused. Governor Newsom says he sides with Krell, the Republicans, that this really should be a no-brainer. What's going on here for the Democrats?
Well, first of all, I'm a children's rights advocate, so anything that's going to protect children, I'm there for it. I think the story is being reported out without the nuances and the attention that it needs. Because as I've read the story, it's really about do you treat an 18-year-old kid that solicits sex from a 17-year-old kid in the same way that you would, say, a 50 or 60-year-old man? And I think that's where the Democrats and Krell have been fighting about some of the nuances in the law. I don't think Democrats, and I can say this with certainty, are in any way suggesting that anyone that solicits sex from a minor should not be held accountable, should not face very staunch consequences for that conduct. We have seen just too many instances where powerful men in particular have been able to, escape accountability, escape prosecution for their involvement with sex trafficking. So I think it's mischaracterizing the Democratic position to suggest that they don't want to see anyone involved in exploiting children held accountable.
But you got to admit the politics of this are bad, right?
Well, I think, again, it's the way it's being reported. I don't think that the reporting is accurate. I don't think the reporting is thorough. I don't think it's dealing with the nuances as it relates to the law. And there are already very strong laws on the books in the state of California that make it a felony to engage in sex trafficking or to solicit sex from a minor.
We're the only state that doesn't have this already put into law. And it is embarrassing. It's disgusting. Gavin Newsom knows it. Eleni Kounalakis knows it. Christine Pelosi knows it. They all came out and said, what are we doing here, Democrats? And I don't know if it's so much misreporting. I think you have a lot of Democrats in the state assembly who are saying, wait a second, this isn't a great look for us to take the side of people who are soliciting sex from 16 and 17-year-olds. I had Assemblyman Carl DeMaio on my program this morning, and he's a gay Republican. And basically the excuse from the progressive Democrats who are fighting back against this said that somehow it's an equity issue and that it's not fair to Black and brown and LGBTQ people. Well, he comes out and says this is using the LGBTQ movement like a window dressing to sell sex trafficking to people. And look, I think it's offensive. It's offensive to those communities to say that it's only those people that are going to be buying sex with 16 and 17-year-old people. I think we have to take a stand. I think any other position is really quite disgusting.
Yeah, no, Jennifer, I don't think they're saying that only Black and brown or LGBTQ.
That was a Democrat in the assembly that said that.
No, but I think, again, that is not the position of the majority of Democrats on this bill.
Agreed.
The majority of Democrats are looking at the equity issues when it comes to making laws in this state, harsher laws, more laws, because we know disproportionately African Americans and Latinos are going to bear the brunt of those kinds of laws. So again, I don't think any Democrat wants to or is in any way suggesting that you should not be held accountable, criminally accountable for sex trafficking or soliciting sex from a minor. I hope the Democrats and Republicans go back to the table, work this out, come up with a solution that protects children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, really, this shouldn't even be a political issue. I mean, there should be no debate that this is something that should happen. And, Republicans
we just solved that problem.
Yeah, Republicans really want to win elections. They'll use an issue like this to do it because it's so common sense.
Let's end with something that I think can bring us together, which is Areva's great work for the Special Needs Network. You're wearing pink today.
I am.
As a way to promote a big special upcoming event. Put some info on the screen right now. On May 18th, a Pink Pump Affair is happening at the Beverly Hilton. How can people get involved in this?
This is an event, a fundraiser where we raise money for a free summer camp that we offer every year for kids on the spectrum as well as their typical peers. And this year we're also raising money for fire victims. So they can go to the SNN website, snnla.org, learn more about the organization and learn how they can also find some very cute pink outfit to be in the audience as we honor 4 amazing women who are doing great work in our community and also raise money for kids on the spectrum as well as, again, those fire victims who've suffered so much. I'd love for Jennifer and Alec, both of you, to be my special guest.
I would love to come. And I love pink, by the way. I have tons of it.
Lipstick on. You look like you look great in pink. We have a great time. We celebrate amazing champions in our community, and we raise money for kids. So something we can all agree on.
I love that. We end on something that brings us all together. Jennifer, great job on week 1 here.
Thank you.
Nice
Happy
to have
anniversary.
You aboard. And OG, thank you. Congrats on the big event.
Congratulations to you again.
We'll wrap things up with a preview of a big exclusive interview next week. Stay with us.